Hi, my name is Mary Luddy, and I'm going to tell you what God did for me and my family in 2020. My husband Andy and I were both raised in very strong households of faith, and we were raised to kind of feel and believe that whatever God sent our way is what we were going to deal with, and that He knew what was best for us. We've kind of raised our daughters, Andrew and Melissa, the same way. And I'm telling you, this is just kind of background information to what follows. We believe God is in control of our life, even if we don't understand exactly what's happening or why it's happening. There's an old song that says, "Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus." And so that kind of sums it up. Also, I have observed in my many years of walking with God that when things happen that are difficult, people have two reactions. They either run away from God and blame Him, or they run to Him. Kind of similar to like a little child that's very mad at their parents and they're frustrated and they don't know why what's happening is happening and they want to run away from home. But they can't run away from home because they really know they can't make it at all out there in the outside world. And for me, the second one has really been my experience. So, and Andy and I, in our 35 years of marriage, we've kind of run into situations like that quite a bit. And we've had, probably 2020 was full of them. So, bear with me if I have to look at my notes a little bit, but I'm going to kind of tell you our story. So, first of all, to quote a favorite movie, there is too much. Let me sum up. In December of 2019, my husband Andy, who was working for a company from home over the internet, he did something that was called EDI, and it has to do with data analysis and inventory and computer programming, and he'd done that for 15 years, and he got a phone call saying he was being downsized at the end of the year. Just kind of hit him out of the blue. Now, previous to that job, he had been unemployed for 3 years, and God really guided us and took care of us through that process, and we thought we had learned everything we needed to know about God providing, but I guess we had more to learn. So when we found out, we hugged each other, we prayed, we called for support. Our pastors, our friends, our family already started praying for us. Also, about that time, a friend of ours gave us a verse that she felt like God gave us, and so that I'm going to read because I don't have it memorized. And it says, Psalms 112, 7 and 8. They do not fear bad news. They confidently trust the Lord to care for them. They are confident and can face their foes triumphantly. Little did I know how prophetic that would be. I had my daughter write out the verse in some nice handwriting, and we put it up on a piece of paper on the cupboard, and I prayed that verse about every day. Also about the same time, we got a magazine from American Bible Society, which had a page with a verse to pray every day for God's provision. Cut that out, it went up on the fridge. And of course, we started praying that one every day. About the same time in December, my older brother Frank, who lives in Rochester, New York, about 4 hours away, had been having health issues. And many years ago, he had asked me to be his healthcare power of attorney and estate person. And long story short, he was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer in February, and he passed away in the middle of March. So in the middle of the pandemic, as it was rising, I was going back and forth to Rochester and trying to take care of his affairs. As devastating as this was, again, the pandemic was beginning. And so when I came home the last time, about 3 weeks into March, the pandemic shutdown began, travel got shut down, and there we were. And of course, the pandemic had its own stresses, and most of you have many stories you can tell about that. My job was at a nursing home. I'm an RN, and most of you probably heard about all the different restrictions that got put on nursing homes, so that was stressful in itself. But even though we followed all the protocols and did everything that we could, in November, COVID came to our facility. So on November 18th, 2020, the day after my husband's birthday, I was diagnosed with COVID. And later that week found out I had Covid Pneumonia. So in the long run, it hit me kind of hard, and I ended up not going back to work till mid-January. So now there's 2 of us who are not working. So that's all the bad news. Now the good part. When Andy lost his job, He got 2 months of severance, plus they decided to pay him for vacation time that he had not used. We had a parent loan that for one of our daughter's college loans, and that got put on deferment, so we didn't have to pay it. There was the stimulus checks that everybody got. My husband had, let me say that again, my brother Frank had a life insurance policy that I was a beneficiary of. We got money from that. When I was in Rochester, when I had to go back and forth, I was provided with a free, safe, wonderful place to stay every time. His girlfriend had a medical background, so she was able to help me tremendously the whole time that he was sick. There was a Christian lawyer referred to us by our church that talked to me through everything I needed to know, didn't charge me a thing. Our church family and friends from all over the country gave us all kinds of emotional, financial, and prayer support. Our church family brought us dinners for probably over a week when we were sick, including hand-baked cookies from some of the church children, pictures drawn, all kinds of encouragement. Also, I had extra tests I had to have done in December and a specialist visit, which normally takes a month to schedule, but they were all scheduled by the end of December, so they were paid for by the CARES Act that expired at the end of December. All of these things kind of rolled in together. My family, my 2 daughters still live at home with us. They got sick, but not as sick as I did. And I would say I couldn't have quarantined with 3 other more wonderful people. I didn't have to go to the hospital. I didn't need oxygen. In January, I had to apply for family leave from work. And because it was January 1st, my vacation time for the new year kicked in. And while I lost 2 weeks of vacation, I had 2 weeks more paid of work that I didn't know I was going to have. And because I worked at my employer for so long, I still have 2 weeks of vacation left to take. So that was all God's provision too. God gave me so many songs of encouragement. I have a whole Spotify playlist, so many verses, so many things that we learned as a family that we really saw God's provision. In January of 2021, I asked God for a new promise. I said, I need a new promise. It's so sad to see your husband just trying and applying and having interviews and nothing happening. And I heard the song, which I just forgot the name of, There Is a Cloud by Elevation Worship. And it talks about in the beginning, Elijah had prayed at the end of the drought. God had sent a drought, and he said he was going to send rain. And he kept sending his servant off to look for that cloud to come, the sign of rain. And finally he said, there's a cloud coming. And I just knew, I felt in my heart that that was my promise, that our rain was coming. So in March 10th, I came home from work. And I knew Andy had an interview that day. And he says in his very low-key way, well, I seem to have a job. They interviewed him and they hired him the same day, which never happens in his line of work. Usually you have interview upon interview and then they call you a week later. So our drought was over, and he would be working remotely like he did before, doing the same work he did before pretty much, and making more money. So praise God. Now, did we face our foes triumphantly? Not always. I know that there were some times I spent an awfully lot of time crying and yelling and praying to God, and other times I would be singing and declaring scriptures and praying in more faith. So really some of both. But I do know that we stood, not always very strongly, but we stood and we trusted and we obeyed. And there's one more verse I'm going to share, and that's Psalm 138, 2 and 8. I will give thanks to your name for your unfailing faithfulness, because your promises are backed by all the honor of your name. When I pray, you answer me. You encourage me by giving me the strength I need. The Lord will work his plans for my life. Your faithful love endures forever. That's it. Thanks for listening.